say to you, we can't tell you if there's an investigation, yet they publish. I've seen published reports from Florida Bar where they're quoting Florida Bar officers saying the FBI is investigating, where they can say that the FBI is investigating, and the FBI says there is no investigation because we can't tell you there's an investigation. So how do they know? How do they know the FBI is investigating? I mean, how?
Well, I know they're investigating.
You know?
Yeah, sure, I know they are, because if they aren't, then Glenn Fine and a whole lot of people who started these investigations a bunch of years ago are in a world of shit. Meaning they better have a big old fat file called Iviewit in the end with car bombing and with what they were doing on the scene of a car bombing and the evidence that they extracted from me over meetings, etc. And they better have been doing something, or else they're going to be included in the RICO.
Well, how do you find out if they do have that file?
I don't want to.
Okay.
Actually.
All right, but I'm saying
right now the truth is, Les, that if they gave that to me, I think personally it would endanger a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, I realize that, but what,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
That would be because I would use it prior to them having a completed case, obviously.
Right. Well,
if they get to the end of this and say, "Oh, we didn't do anything for the last 7 years," while we had all this information, then I'm charging them with criminal obstruction.
With
because
is that
they
honest?
do have obligations and duties. Meaning, this went to the U.S. Attorney in Florida by the West Palm Beach FBI. Almost 5 years ago. So, they better all have some explanations of what's transpired.
Yeah.
And,
So our hope, because other cases that I know of and cases that I'm involved in, we've also gone to the FBI with them, and we don't know what the status of that is. Not that we're supposed to know, because they tell you that they won't tell you if there's anything. They won't discuss it with you. But
and by the way, Les, we're not coming into the FBI saying this guy's writing bad checks.
No, I know.
Okay, that by the way takes 3 years.
Right.
I'm going in saying that our government's been overthrown by these lawyers.
Right.
That they've infiltrated. Look at New York, where the whistleblower.
Yeah.
She came into a federal court and said that favored law firms and lawyers were getting their attorney disciplinary complaints whitewashed. That the New York Attorney General was illegally representing in her case the state defendants and failing to do his investigation of public officials for a whistleblower, and had failed to call anybody in to do that, obstructing justice. She then said that the U.S. attorneys in New York were getting complaints whitewashed by the disciplinary department, and that the district attorney and the assistant district attorney's complaints. Now, that's a coup right there.
Right.
You've disabled the ethics department in New York, which then subsequently disabled the ethics complaints that would have come in against the attorney general, the district attorney. And so you've got a criminal organization operating inside of the court or the prosecutorial. And now, as you see the grander picture in America, these lawyers have infiltrated the regulatory bodies, deregulated. And who's benefiting from all these crimes, TARP and everything else? Lawyers,
yeah, for the most part.
And anybody who complains against them go into this Florida bar system, which is an attorney protection agency.
Right.
And it's a criminal organization has infiltrated the key components of government. That criminal organization is those favored law firms and lawyers that Christine Anderson, the whistleblower, came out in federal court under Judge Shira Scheindlin and fingered. Said, this is what's going on here. This is why nobody's getting justice. Look, there's a lady who's raped by her lawyer, and she's one of the related cases, like my Iviewit case, to the whistleblower by the judge. And, now recently she's gotten some justice. He got disbarred for 3 months.
That's it?
Please. But that's okay.
Yeah, at least there was something that happened that's supposed to happen.
And now the civil stuff that's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
And the criminal stuff that,
right.
It could have been 3 days suspension and she could have jumped up and down for joy. Because for years she's been stonewalled.
Right.
And until the whistleblower came out, until the federal judge. Now.
But let's be clear, though. This is New York, not Florida, folks.
Well, no. Wrong. Meaning Christine Anderson did not disclose who the favored lawyers and law firms are.
Okay.
Let's assume that it's Proskauer.
Okay.
Or Foley.
Okay.
They all have offices here. Hell, the Solicitor General of Florida was a Foley and Lardner partner. God knows why.
Okay, but my point...
And he's now got a special post inside Charlie Crist's cabinet. So he was brought in to block my complaints, block things at the Supreme Court level. And so what's going on here is not just the Florida bar. the Florida bar is the thing that's protecting the attorneys. There might be hundreds of complaints for criminal activity against the Attorney General here in Florida that are getting the same whitewash treatment. We find the same conflicts occurring in New York and Florida. I have personally found the same exact conflicts where people are violating public offices, getting in and getting their complaint information, handling it illegally to get rid of it. And so you've got the same problem. So I think really what you've seen is that it's started in New York. It's spread to probably a few major cities through these large law firms. And look, it's the same law firm, for example, in all these regulatory failures. You'll see that in Madoff, the regulator is from Proskauer Rose. In the Stanford case, the regulator is the former SEC enforcement dude. Tom Slobjam is in a Miami hangar teaching the Stanford employees how to lie to investigators. Where was Slobjam? He was at the Fort Worth office of the SEC where Stanford was buried. Then he was hired by Proskauer, and his client was Stanford. So it's a revolving door of these lawyers into government posts. Wherever they need to block due process, they throw in a lawyer. Greenberg Trout, take a look, from Abramoff down the line. These guys represent the Florida bar when they have conflicts against their former customers. Meaning they were actually patent counsel of mine, and now they're representing the Florida bar in the New York federal case.
So, right now in Florida, there's the election that's coming up. The Supreme Court justices, there's several of them that are on there. One was Labarga, candidate Polston. They are asking for the public's approval of them for them to stay in office. What would you say?
Well, I'm suing Kennedy and Labarga.
Okay.
And so Labarga's, they're both in a $1 trillion lawsuit. They've involved the Florida bar. They've put a lot of liability on the state of Florida and the insurance company behind the Florida bar. When this all gets resolved, they've maybe done cataclysmic damage to the bar and the Supreme Court's insurance company, as well as the state, if it's found to have been part of actually architecting this inside the state. I don't know exactly how all that plays out, but Jorge Labarga is going to be, a central part. He's one of the key components to the RICO I've filed.
Don't they have to disclose that they're defendants in this kind of a lawsuit?
Sure, I would assume he has to, but, they're not doing anything by the rules. These are criminals inside, meaning if we assume that these are criminal law firms planting inside government, these are criminals we're dealing with, so they're not going to follow the rules. And that's why you see basically the bar acting like a criminal organization. And the courts. Look, this whole foreclosure mess is going to cause, on all these guys, I don't know how they're planning on bearing it. I see they called in Greenberg Traug already to start with this Florida foreclosure mess. Yeah. So they're going to try to weasel their way out of it again. But again and again.
Well, they're blaming the banks right now, and they've got this guy Tuckman, or not Tuckman. Some lawyer has filed a class action suit on behalf of the foreclosees, I guess, or people that are involved, who is suing the banks. My question has always been, what is the involvement of rogue attorneys in this? And how many of those rogue attorneys are insured by...
Every contract signed, mortgage, bank, loan, everything was written by a law firm.
Right. And then are those lawyers, how many of them are insured by Florida Lawyers Mutual? And is there a reason why Judge Cox decided that only the Florida bar could do anything to prosecute them, and that they were not fair game for the Attorney General of the state of Florida to prosecute?
And the Florida bar has no prosecutorial role.
Well, that's not supposed to be their role, but of course that's the quote from the judge that's their prosecutors. So this whole thing. Hopefully, I have to imagine that at some point in time, there's going to be either an upheaval in the media to finally turn tables on this and expose this, and that it's going to take down the hierarchy of the judiciary, and it's
a criminal organization that's usurped the judiciary. There's a lot of good lawyers out there, Les.
Yes, there are.
And you know what? Christine Anderson, this whistleblower in New York, and we should have one here and Get So Lucky in Florida.
Yeah. Well, they have one. They had this lady that blew the whistle on these foreclosures in Stern's law firm here in Palm Beach County.
and God bless her.
Yeah.
Because what they do to these people,
yeah.
like Christine Anderson, is, you know, the next thing you know, they're trying to threaten her. They're another lady from the ethics department in New York, same thing as the Florida bar, came to testify at Anderson's thing. They levied threats against her, a federal witness going to a federal case. So, you know, even if you're trying to do something good within these departments, the minute you do, you go against the top,
you become the target.
You are a target. That's right. Christine Anderson's the victim. And imagine a whistleblower going to the state of New York's attorney general, and instead of him representing her, he represents the state defendants.
Yeah.
She complains about and fails to bring in anybody to investigate them. In my case, for example, in New York, the attorney, and we'll get to that attorney general thing here in Florida in a second.
Yeah.
This will probably be a nice segue into that. But in New York, you know, the attorney general took in my complaint information against 39 New York state defendants. And so he told me, you know, we're looking into it, et cetera, and sent me the old "we're looking into it" letter. Well, when I filed my federal lawsuit, he started representing the 36 or 9 people that I'm suing in New York. And
he's supposed to be the protector of the public, and when you file a complaint, he now becomes the protector of the person you're complaining against.
That's right, and his public integrity unit is the unit that's supposed to investigate. I was told by a federal judge to go to his offices. She sent my case to him directly, hand-delivered, and she and so what he did there was he not only when he can choose to represent the state defendants. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Okay.
What is wrong is when he does that, he has an obligation to say my public integrity unit is now conflicted, or he had to have set up a China wall, which he never did.
Right.
And
something to allow him to change sides and protect your original complaint.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And he didn't do anything like that. So what did he do? He became part of the RICO organization by committing the crime of obstruction. So he blocked due process, and he covered the state employees illegally, in my case and Anderson's, and we're all pushing to knock him out. By the way, if we knock out in New York the attorney general from representing those 36 defendants, all 36 of, and by the way, he's representing them personally and professionally on public dime in New York.
Wow.
Which is, it's a mind-boggling.
That's unbelievable, on taxpayers' dollars.
Representing against a whistleblower.
Yeah.
Sitting across from her in a court and failing to call in a non-conflicted investigator, meaning if you're going to take the role of defending the state of defendants, great, but I need somebody now who's non-conflicted and not your office to be handling the investigation. When you fail to do that under Public Office Law 17B2 or 2B in New York, you've committed a conflict. That conflict obstructs justice. In a federal case, it's Title 18 obstruction. He's done it both in the state court and the federal. So I'm filing criminal charges against him for those obstructions, which in a RICO makes him part of the whole criminal organization. And that's what you need to see here in Florida. This is a criminal organization of law firms.
Okay, well, I'm going to hold on one second,
okay.
Eliot. My guest is Eliot Bernstein. Iviewit TV is the website, and it's IVIEWIT.TV website. If you want to look at what the information is on his website, I want to refer you to our website, which is disbarthefloridabar.com. We have interviewed Eliot in the past. This is a follow-up to those interviews. Eliot is, as you can tell from the conversation, he's a knowledgeable person. He is above average intelligence, and he knows what's going on, and he has, done everything in his power to overcome the racketeering at this level. And it's an amazing thing to me how infected this arrangement is, how one part covers another, how they protect each other, because if it unravels, they all go down. And, of course, we're talking about some very, very powerful and important people throughout the country, not just in the state of Florida, but all over the country. So we'll be back with Eliot in a second. I want to remind you that this program is Disbar the Florida Bar. It airs every day from 2 to 3 p.m. right here on The Biz. And we bring to light stories of individuals who have experience with the judiciary, with the bars, with rogue attorneys, rogue judges, This is something that's going on a regular, everyday basis, and it's affecting all of our lives. There is a tremendous shift in wealth where when this